No motivation rarely shows up as a dramatic collapse. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't break anything. It just quietly removes the feeling that anything is worth starting. Most people don't wake up one day and say, "I've lost motivation." They wake up and notice that everything feels heavier than it used to. Getting out of bed takes more effort. Small tasks feel strangely overwhelming, and even when they do things right, nothing really lands. You might still be functioning. You might still go to work. You might still answer messages and show up when required. But inside, something feels muted, like a switch has been turned down rather than off. What makes this confusing is that nothing is obviously wrong. You're not in crisis. You're not falling apart. Your life might even look comfortable from the outside, and yet you feel stuck. Not tired in the physical sense, tired in a way that sleep doesn't reach. You scroll without interest. You open apps without intention. You jump between things not because you're curious, but because staying with one thing feels uncomfortable. When the stimulation stops, there's a subtle restlessness, an urge to escape again. People call this laziness. Some call it burnout. Others blame discipline or mindset. But none of those explanations really fit. Laziness implies not caring, and most people in this position care deeply. They care so much that the constant gap between what they want to do and what they actually do becomes exhausting. Burnout implies too much effort, but many people feel this way even when they aren't pushing themselves, even when their lives are objectively easier than they've ever been. So what's actually happening? We live in a time where friction has been carefully removed. Food arrives instantly. Entertainment never runs out. Discomfort is optional. Silence is rare. Effort is something you can almost always postpone. At first, this feels like freedom. But over time, something subtle happens. When nothing resists you, nothing pulls you forward either. Motivation doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades quietly in environments where nothing asks anything from you. You can see this in small, everyday moments. Someone keeps waiting to feel ready before starting something important. They plan, they organize, they watch videos about how to begin, but the moment never arrives. Another person is productive all day at work, focused and capable. But once they're home, everything collapses. They sit down, pick up their phone, and the evening disappears. Not because they're resting, but because they don't know how to engage anymore. Someone else consumes motivation content constantly. They understand discipline intellectually. They know all the right ideas, but nothing sticks. Each burst of inspiration fades faster than the last. These aren't personal failures. They're predictable outcomes of how modern life is structured. Here's the shift that changes everything. Motivation is not the starting point. It's the response. Motivation exists to help us move through resistance. It's a signal that appears after engagement begins, not before. When resistance disappears from daily life, motivation has no role to play. This is why waiting to feel motivated never works. You're waiting for a signal that only shows up after you act. Comfort doesn't just make things easy. It removes the conditions that motivation needs to exist. Overstimulation keeps the mind busy. Convenience keeps the body passive. Avoidance slowly becomes the default response to any discomfort. So the problem isn't that you lack motivation. The problem is that your environment blocks it at every turn. Once you see this, the question changes. Not, how do I get motivated? But what am I avoiding that my mind actually needs to engage with? The solution doesn't start with forcing yourself to do more or fixing your mindset. It starts with removing what's numbing you. Reduce constant input, fewer notifications, less background noise, less passive consumption, not forever, just enough to let your mind feel friction again. Then reintroduce effort in its simplest form, not extreme challenges, not dramatic transformations, just small, deliberate discomfort. Do something physical. Finish something simple. Stay with a task after the urge to escape appears. This isn't about productivity. It's about rebuilding trust with your own mind. Your brain watches what you do. Every time you follow through despite resistance, it learns something. It learns that effort leads somewhere, that discomfort isn't dangerous, that engagement is possible. Over time, motivation returns, but not as excitement. It returns as steadiness, as clarity, as a quiet willingness to begin. And that's the part most people miss. Real motivation doesn't feel loud. It doesn't feel like a surge. It feels calm, almost ordinary, but it lasts. If something here resonated, don't turn it into a plan or a checklist. Just notice where you're escaping effort without realizing it. Notice where comfort quietly replaced engagement. And once in a while, don't escape it. Stay. That's enough. That's where things begin to shift. If this way of thinking resonated with you, you might want to stay around. This channel is for people who feel this quiet disconnect and want to understand it, not run from it. If you'd like to keep exploring these ideas over time, you can subscribe. And if this video felt useful or helped put something into words, liking it helps more people find it.